Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT FM Pegram, WPUC HD2 Laverne. Nashville's exclusive home for the Nashville Predators. 102.5 and 106.3.
A gunny performance. Do your job.
And the Tigers regain the lead.
The Game.
A Cromwell media station.
Discussing the big sports stories of the weekend. This is Michelle and Junnie. With Michelle Knezovic and Junnie Riddle. Presented by Superbook Sports on 102.5 and 106.3. The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Good Saturday morning, Nashville, and welcome into the Michelle and Junnie show. Junnie Riddle filling in for Michelle Knezovic, who is on vacation this weekend. So, back-to-back weekends, we have the reporter, Nicholas Keyser, filling in.
You used my full name.
I know, I did say Nicholas. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's Nick. Nick is sitting in here, double weekend with the Hilltopper boys, taking over Nashville airwaves. Gotta love it, Nick. You were at the game last night. Interesting game with the Nashville Predators. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk a little bit of Memphis Grizzlies as they have a really interesting first-round matchup against LeBron and the Los Angeles Lakers. The draft for the NFL is less than 2 weeks away. What are the Titans going to do? There's a lot of rumors and speculations with where they can go, what kind of prospect they're going to be picking up. So a lot of things to get into all across professional sports here in the great state of Tennessee. But last night, the Nashville Predators ended their season with a makeup game after that water main break over the Thanksgiving break. They were playing the defending champions, Colorado Avalanche, who were actually playing for something. If they won the game last night, they would have won the Central, and they would have a much better matchup, I would say, in the first round of the playoffs. If they lost, they would have had to take on Minnesota and be the number 2 seed out of the Central Division. So last night's game, the Preds, who have been depleted with some of their veterans on the roster, we know who they got rid of at the trade deadline, and the Young Guns, again, had a pretty good performance last night. Keyser, you were there. What are your thoughts about the Predators, how they ended the season, and what they had to take on last night in the defending champion Colorado Avalanche?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a game that was very fast. I mean, you start off 28 seconds in, and they score the first goal of the game. It banks off of Dante Fabro and in the net. You know, not something that you want to have happen early, but Devontae's was the one that threw it on net, and it went in pretty quickly. I mean, it was really just a development of trying to set up in the offensive zone. The Preds were kind of caught off guard trying to set up and defend them. However, you know, when you're going up against a guy named Nathan MacKinnon, I mean, there's not much you can do to defend him, because not long after, he made it 2-0. And when you look and see how he skates, the way that MacKinnon moved past Sissons into the slot, because Colton tried to reach back with his stick, and I thought he would get called for slashing had he come down a lot harder on him, but he broke past him, and it was 2-0 very quick last night. The young Preds, I thought, held the test as best as they could, but it was Kiefer Sherwood who really broke through for the Preds last night. He had 2 goals. That's only the 4th time in his career that he's had 2 points in a single game. So for him to come off and end the season that way, it's awesome for him. And he also started the scoring for the Nashville Predators in the regular season over in Prague this year, and now he's the final Predator that scored a goal this year. So overall, you know, I think the young kids held in there with the defending Stanley Cup champions, by the way, who are now division champs after that win last night. They held it. I thought they did, you know, I think held it doesn't do it justice, quite frankly, because ultimately when you hold a team that is capable of whipping you around the entire night, I mean, that really tells you something. And, you know, Kiefer told us after the game, it says a lot about this group that they were in there really close with this Avalanche group last night. So kudos to them. The young guys pulled through. It was a very fun game to watch in terms of speed and just picking up on how they needed to defend this team.
I think it speaks volumes, Nick, if I'm being frank here. I mean, the Avalanche scored a goal in the first 30 seconds of the game. And then, like you mentioned, after that, Nathan MacKinnon goes on to have a hat trick on the night, just absolutely dominating the entire game. But the Preds, after going down 2-0, you saw Kiefer Sherwood respond, and Nathan MacKinnon scored again there on the tail end of the first period. It was a 3-1 deficit. And the Avalanche really dominated that opening period, but the Preds responded with a Luke Evangelista goal and Kiefer Sherwood goal to knot it all up to 3. I think the Preds easily won that second period. And then in that last third period of the game, it was really neck and neck all the way. And then MacKinnon makes a huge play with under 2 minutes remaining, and it sealed the deal for the Avalanche. But in hindsight, looking at this Predators team, knowing exactly what happened last year, I mean, UC Saros wasn't playing in this game. Kevin Lankinen was in net. And last year they played a whole series and got swept by this Colorado Avalanche team when they didn't have UC Saros. And it just kind of goes to show you that one of the most talented and well-balanced rosters in the entire NHL came in here with, big implications for their playoffs on the line. The Preds had nothing. They traded off a bunch of their veterans. The most expensive players on their roster remaining have been injured, and yet they still compete at a high level against one of the best teams in the NHL, the defending champions. And I just think that encompasses the second half of this season since the trade deadline as, wow, like we didn't see this coming, and just to get the most out of this young group and to see what they have really leaves a good taste in your mouth as the season comes to its conclusion.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And one thing that I picked up on that I was talking about with Jay Moore, who's going to join us later, is that the Avalanche, they had 7 high-danger chances on even strength in the opening period. And obviously those first 2 goals were those a couple of chances, obviously. But then this young group held the Avalanche to no high-danger chances on even strength in the second period. The second period was solely won by the Preds last night, and it clearly showed. So,
No, most definitely. I just, like I said, since the trade deadline, I mean, I actually kind of went through. I feel like you, the reporter, always digging up these amazing stats.
That's what I do.
And something that I came up with was since the trade deadline, like guys like Tommy Novak, in 23 games since the trade deadline, Tommy Novak had 21 points. Last year when he got called up and he played in the beginning of the season in the 21-22 season, he had 7 points in 27 games.
He sure did.
And it goes to show you, what sending somebody down like that for another year in Milwaukee and developmental-wise, what that can do. I look at a guy like Juuso Parssinen, only played in 45 games this year, got called up in November, and then obviously had that injury that took him out for a couple months. So 25 points in 45 games, and even in the games that he didn't produce any points in the box score, you could easily see his impact in the game and him making plays. Physicality-wise, he has elite skill and some good stuff there. So also, Kiefer Sherwood, playing really well this last bit, and then Mark Jankowski, 4 points in the last 5 games to end his season. So really interesting for some of these young guys getting their opportunity. But relative to the Preds, yesterday the Capitals and Peter Laviolette mutually agreed to part ways. Laviolette being with the Capitals following Barry Trotz's Stanley Cup run there. He followed Barry Trotz again, kind of being his replacement as well. And it really seems like the Capitals in general with Ovechkin in that core is starting to age out a bit, and Peter Laviolette is going to be looking for a new place to coach. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, and I was just pulling up some numbers on this too, just to give our listeners a perspective of what he did in Washington. So he went 115, 78, and 27. He also was not too successful in the postseason, and he missed the playoffs one year, whereas John Hines went to the postseason for the last 2 out of 3 years as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been the same amount of success, if you ask me. Now, the numbers are a little bit different in terms of, what the success was during the regular season, because the Capitals struggled during that 2020 year when Peter went in there after he was let go by the Predators. It is kind of surprising because this wasn't too expected, is what I would say, because he's a guy that is going to keep you competitive. And the fact that we just saw yesterday, Junnie, you know this very well with the Penguins, they just cleaned house yesterday. And
they sure did.
And when you look at what the Capitals are capable of doing this offseason, they too could go in a completely different direction. Not saying that Ovechkin's on the market or Backstrom's going to be traded or that Darcy Kemper is going to be on the block after him signing a big deal last summer after winning the Cup with Colorado. I really think that he's going to get a job pretty quickly. I mean, you just saw Dallas Eakins get fired yesterday from the Anaheim Ducks. Larson's out from the Blue Jackets this morning. So you've got some opportunities around the league that are opening up now that the offseason is here. Peter's going to do a good job. He's going to take you to the playoffs, and he's going to challenge your group to its very, very best. So he's going to ask you to do a lot. However, I think during his time here in Nashville, he changed the entire shift of our viewpoint of what hockey needs to be, I think, because he takes us to the Cup final. He takes us back to the postseason. He's also a guy that he and his staff are going to be workhorses night in and night out. And I'm not saying I've not seen that with Hines. I think he is doing that with his staff. But to have a former guy come on the market with Hines, kind of on the bubble of we don't know if he's going to stay or not, it is an interesting thought to keep in the back of your head as we go into the offseason.
I definitely thought about that, Laviolette and all of his success here. And, it was bittersweet seeing him go in the middle of the season a few years ago. So that will be telling because, we'll be bringing that up a little bit later about John Hines and his job security here. But 615-737-1025 is our phone and text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We want your phone and text all show long. We're going to be here till 11 a.m., and we want to know your thoughts of the encompassment of the Nashville Predators season. What were your thoughts? How did you begin to think when the season started? And what is your conclusion as the season is now wrapped up? In other news, the Titans' former outside linebacker Bud Dupree has signed a one-year deal worth around $5 million to the Atlanta Falcons. So do you have any thoughts about Bud Dupree going to Atlanta? I feel like all of Tennessee's former players are now heading to the Atlanta Falcons with Arthur Smith.
It's our feeder team. So
basically,
I mean,
Atlanta is Nashville South. So all of the Titans trash is now starting to go down there. So good for Bud Dupree getting an opportunity. Atlanta's quietly having a pretty good offseason. So,
they are, yeah.
But we're going to get into the Tennessee Titans a little bit next. The over-under for wins and losses came out about a week ago. Nick and I are going to discuss where the Titans match up in this jam-packed, stacked AFC. You're listening to the Michelle and Junnie show here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
He knows the ins and outs of the Titans and isn't afraid to give his opinion.
Traylon Burks needs a massive offseason.
He's Jonathan Hutton of Outkick.
I don't see how they make a move without going to Ryan Tannehill.
Catch him every Monday at 10:30 on Chase and Michelle, and every Wednesday at noon on Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace. Brought to you by Blend Bar with Davidoff Cigars. Hutton is on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Gary Ashton here. People walk up to me all the time and say, "Don't sell without the intel." This message couldn't be more true. Right now, it's a fantastic time to buy or sell your home in Nashville, but you can't do it without the intel. No one has more intel than the Gary Ashton team. So what is this intel we keep hearing about? Intel so you can sell your home without stagings or showings? Intel on where to find your next home so that you can sell your current home while the market is hot? And intel that helps you win the buyer battle and cash in on your home equity. For more intel, visit GaryAshton.com, where we can give you the insight and the most up-to-date real estate intel in Nashville. Plus, the Gary Ashton team is the official real estate team of the Nashville Predators. Get the confidence to sell your home and find the dream address without the stress. Visit us today at GaryAshton.com. That's GaryAshton.com. And remember, don't sell without the intel.
Hey, it's Jared. Are you looking to move? If so, do yourself a favor and reach out to my friends at TriStar Moving. You can be assured your move will be stress-free because they've got new utility vans to help with pack jobs to separate your high-value or fragile items from the bulk of your furniture, and their movers are carefully picked and highly trained. No one in the game is doing this. TriStar Moving is raising the standard in the moving industry. When you're ready to move, give them a call. TriStar Moving, 615-640-1219, or online at nationalmoving.org/radio, and tell them Jared Stillman referred you for 10% off. That's TriStar Moving.
Hey, Robby, Stanley here, and the NBA playoffs are here, and you can turn crossovers into cash with FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com/Rob right now and place a $5 bet, and you'll get an instant $150 back in bonus bets, win or lose. So FanDuel, I've talked to you about it for a long time. They've got great promotions every single day. The app is safe and secure, and you get paid instantly. I like the Milwaukee Bucks coming out of the East, and I like the Phoenix Suns coming out of the West. But you can take it any way you want to take it. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Just go to FanDuel.com/Rob and sign up to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet your first $5. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. You must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. You can see full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Got a gambling problem? Make sure you call the Tennessee Red Line today at 1-800-889-9789.
Do you take pride in your work? Do you want to help build Nashville? Need to join Ironworkers Local 492. They build Nashville, working on everything from steel erection on buildings and bridges, plant maintenance, concrete reinforcing, conveyor work, sheeting, welding, rigging, fence erecting, curtain wall, window wall, and a variety of other specialty work. They provide the best skilled ironworkers for contractors and projects in Nashville. You want to build Nashville? You want to be proud of doing it? Visit ironworkers492.org. Join Ironworkers Local 492.
Want to weigh in on the conversation? It's a brain booster. Slide into our DMs. Or just text or call at 615-737-1025. Our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. This is Michelle and Junnie.
Well, thank you so much.
Presented by Superbook Sports on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and on the Game Nashville app.
I just would say, if you just look at the AFC, the talented quarterbacks in the division, I understand this desire to say, hey, look, if you're going to beat Burrow, you need somebody that can go toe-to-toe with them. If you're going to beat Mahomes, you need someone to go toe-to-toe with them. The other thing I would say to that is that, those guys aren't always available. And just because you can trade up to get Anthony Richardson doesn't mean he's going to beat Burrow and Mahomes. And so I just then I would just kind of continue that by saying the other way to beat those guys are the way that, quite honestly, the Titans have done it in the past, which is, look, we have a quarterback we believe in, offensive line we believe in, a run game we believe in, and the defense we believe in. So I just it's not the past for me would not be trade a ton of picks to go get somebody that has off the charts physical ability but has 13 starts. That is not the path I would take.
That was Tim Hasselbeck this past Tuesday on Caroline, Willie, and D-Mays, basically saying that he's not a proponent of the Tennessee Titans trading up to the number 3 overall pick and that the draft just isn't everything. But speaking of the draft, tune into Nashville's best NFL draft coverage on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game for the first 3 rounds on Thursday, April 27th, and Friday, April 28th. On the 27th, we're going to be out Twin Peaks and Cool Springs. 28th, we are going to be out at Wingstop in Madison. Coverage presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment, the new Cumberland.com, Smoky Mountain Tops, Parman Energy, and B&B Flooring. So check that out when the draft is here in about 2 weeks. Nick, you heard Tim Hasselbeck here. We know how stacked that the AFC is with guys like Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and everybody's wanting that big-time quarterback. There's already rumors about the Titans trading up to go and get their guy this year to try and compete with some of the big hitters like that. But I just can't get over this. I'm looking at the Titans roster. I'm seeing how many holes there are, and I'm in the same boat as Tim. I don't think that it's worth trading up to go and get your guy just based off of upside. I'm looking at BleacherReport.com right now for expected wins. The Tennessee Titans are projected over under 7.5 wins. The only franchises that are below that are the Colts, Buccaneers, Texans, and Cardinals, and the teams that are tied with them are the Rams, Patriots, Raiders, Packers, Falcons, Panthers, Bears, and the Washington Commanders. So, with all that being said, I kind of want to take this segment to go in and compare the Titans to the rest of the AFC to see where this team stacks up. So, with that being said, let's get started, and let's go into the AFC West. Do you think that the Titans are better than the Chiefs this year?
Oh, I think that's easier said than done to say that Patrick Mahomes is doing better than the Tennessee Titans. So
I know, man. He just absolutely fears the two-tone blue.
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing is, like, I know that we've had success against them, Junnie, but at the end of the day, they're a much better team. I mean, they have the talent. They just signed Marcus Watson, right? Yesterday, I believe.
Yeah, they tied in. I don't know what his first name is. I just know his name's Watson. He's the number 2 tight end next to Kelsey. But yeah, Watson re-signed there.
He's gonna have weapons. He'll make them weapons if they're not already. Is basically what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I would easily give that to the Chiefs. But one thing that comes to mind for me here too is, well, and if you want to go into the AFC South, we can get into that. But, I mean, when you look at the West, I know Russell Wilson's there, and, my boy, Sean Payton, I'm more of a Saints fan. He's going over there, and hopefully he can turn them around. You would think, right? But I don't know. Like, when you look at their roster, they have to really make it count this year if you're the Broncos. So I don't know if they're going to do too much better than what they did this year. Be curious to see. Now, Jimmy G, I think that's going to be the team to watch over there. How much better could they get?
You think the Raiders can get a lot better with Jimmy G rather than Derek Carr?
I think there's potential to be. I think he's a guy where he's capable of being a good starter in this league. Obviously, he's not the best. By no stretch is he the best. However, he is a guy that when he's put in the right situations, he has thrived. He absolutely has, especially when he's healthy.
And you got to think the Raiders also have Hunter Renfrow and Devontae Adams.
Right.
I think you have one of the best slot receivers in the game, and you're also talking about just one of the best overall receivers in the game. And they got rid of Darren Waller, which I think that will definitely hurt. But, they got, Austin Hooper from here.
Right.
And that's a pretty good tight end, and he's not going to be looking for all the targets that per se that a Darren Waller would want. He's going to be, kind of like your piece, kind of like he was for the Titans. Catch, get a first down. He's got great hands. He can make a few yards after the catch plays. But out of that division, so Chargers, Broncos, Chiefs, and Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see any of those teams being worse than the Titans this year?
See, if anybody's worse, I would say it's probably going to be the Broncos. Because if they don't get on the same page quickly, then it's going to go downhill very quickly, Junnie. I don't think it's going to be something that's better than last year, but it could be. There's a big 50-50 here for me just looking at the roster.
Well, see, I look at Denver's defense, and I think that, Nathaniel Hackett, their head coach last year, was a first-year head coach. And he was the offensive coordinator with Green Bay and really tried to implement his system. And I don't necessarily know if that system was the best for Russell Wilson. I look at a guy like Sean Payton, a Super Bowl winning head coach, has known to be an offensive guru. And I just feel as if Russell Wilson, who, while he was in Seattle, was considered a perennial top 10 quarterback, has to have a better season.
He absolutely has to. And Sean Payton's also working with a smaller quarterback like he already has in his previous years.
Yeah, that is exactly there. Drew Brees, around 6 foot. Russell Wilson, he's around that 5'10", 5'11" area. Yep. So yeah, I think that those two could correlate. For me, I'm looking at the Raiders and how much they have to do on the defensive end of things. I think the Titans could be better than them. This Bleacher Report has them both being at that 7.5 over/under and wins range, which I think is about right. So I would say the one team that they're kind of really evenly matched with, kind of polar opposites. Like the Raiders are more of an offensive-centric team, whereas the Titans are obviously a defensive-centric team. I think you can kind of put those two teams hand in hand as they have a strength and they have a clear weakness. So if any team, in my opinion, would be worse, it would be the Raiders. So let's move on to another division here, the division they're actually matched up with. So they'll actually play every single team in this division this upcoming season, and that is the AFC North. So we got the Bengals, the Browns, the Ravens, and the Steelers. Out of those 4 teams, do you think any of those teams are worse than the Titans?
I really want to say the Steelers, Junnie, but the reason I don't want to count them out is because I think Kenny Pickett will be a much more developed quarterback this year. I think after looking at what he could do in certain situations, it was encouraging to me. When you looked at, honestly, I liked his short game at times. I also liked when he did throw the long ball. I think he was pretty accurate at times.
He's actually the second most accurate quarterback throwing the deep ball this season.
I was going to say,
PFF.
I remember seeing he was very good when he took those shots, for sure. I know that he and Mike Tomlin are going to have that trust just like he and Big Ben had. So there's a big if there. Mitch could, back him up if he ever needs him to come in games, obviously. But looking at that division, I think it's going to be loaded this year. But I think my true answer is going to be, if it doesn't get figured out, is going to be the Ravens. If they don't figure out what they're going to do at quarterback, this team's going to be in a lot of trouble. Not saying that the Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley, I know he's kind of given that little title of being a Pro Bowler.
It
shouldn't be
the most watered-down game of all time.
Right, but I'm just saying, if he's your leader, that's going to be your lowest-tiered team in the AFC North. That's not encouraging for those fans because you just got Odell Beckham Jr. a few days ago, and I heard Derek talking about it, but when you look at that roster and you see what they're built to do, if Lamar's not there, I don't think they're as successful as people think that they will be. So Lamar's going to be that key piece for them this year. If they get Lamar, I think it's the Steelers at the bottom still. I think that they'll scratch and claw Junnie. I think they have a chance, but we'll see. I think it's really going to depend on what the Ravens do at quarterback.
So I would agree with you that if Lamar Jackson isn't on the Ravens, that the Titans could be potentially better than them. That would be the only case and scenario if Huntley was their quarterback going into next year with the roster that they have. Now, with that being said, I don't think Cleveland is going to be as good as people think. Deshaun Watson in that group isn't as good. I have the Steelers as the second best team. I think they're going to surprise people.
Okay.
Because TJ Watt missed half the year.
Right.
And they went like 1-7 without him.
They did.
They were with Kenny Pickett and TJ Watt playing in every single game together that they completed. The Steelers were 7-1. And so I think Kenny with a year 2 jump. I have if Lamar goes back to the Ravens, I have every single team in the AFC North right now better than the Tennessee Titans.
Okay.
So we still have 2 more divisions to go, including the division that the Titans are in. We are going to continue this conversation going up on the other side of the break. You are listening to the Michelle and Junnie Show here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
Every day we are live and local.
Are you going to pay $20.2 million for someone who's struggling this much to stay healthy?
And your source for Nashville sports.
The players got to play better, and they're the ones actually out on the court, and they got to execute.
We are Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
There's never a good time for your furnace to go out, especially in the winter, but it's always a good time to call Lee Company. Our heating and air conditioning pros are available 24/7. No heat? Don't wait. Call Lee Company now at 615-567-1000. Our expert technicians will diagnose the issue and fix it right the first time. When you're cold, you need someone you can count on to bring the heat. Call Lee Company now at 615-567-1000 or visit leecompany.com.
Genesis Diamond's spectacular spring store-wide sale is coming April 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. 3 incredible days of store-wide savings. Up to 35% off engagement rings, earrings, bracelets, wedding bands, plus special financing. Even Genesis GIA certified diamonds are marked down. Lab-grown diamonds, too. Plus, top jewelry designers are flying in with all new amazing designs. You can't miss this annual event. Save up to $10,000 on some items. It's April 21st, 22nd, and 23rd only. And only at Genesis Diamonds and luxury pre-owned Rolexes. Green Hills and Cool Springs. See store for details.
Nashville's best deal of the week is Joyland in East Nashville. Joyland is a fun new concept by celebrity chef Sean Brock, inspired by his love for cheeseburgers, shakes, buttermilk biscuits, fries, and fried chicken. Get half off a $30 gift card at thegamenashville.com/deals and enjoy the best burger in town. Find some joy today and eat Joyland for half off with Nashville's best deal of the week. That's thegamenashville.com/deals.
The NFL offseason is in full swing, but you'll never miss any of the big news. Thanks to Yahoo's Charles Robinson.
They know that there's a chance that they're going to have to deal this guy.
He's one of the best insiders there is.
All of a sudden, he becomes a functional player who we thought was just trash.
Join Charles Robinson every Thursday morning at 8 on Robby and Rex Road, presented by the NFL Alumni Association on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. This is Michelle and Junnie.
Really? That's fantastic.
Presented by Superbook Sports on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and on the Game Nashville app.
Welcome back into Michelle and Junnie. Nick Keyser filling in for Michelle Knezvik, who is on vacation. You can watch us streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every day. Our video streaming is brought to you by Superbook. Nick, we went through the AFC West and the AFC North, which, I would think are two of the better divisions in the AFC. So let's get into the AFC East when comparing the Tennessee Titans to those teams. I would say as of right now, you would say that the Broncos and the Ravens without Lamar Jackson, out of those two divisions we just covered, are the only two teams the Titans will be better than. So not looking so good. It's kind of 6-2, 6 teams better, 2 teams worse. We're getting into the East now, and let's start with the Bills, the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Patriots. Obviously, I'm going to start off with this one. Big question mark with the Jets because this Aaron Rodgers deal still hasn't gotten done, but let's say that it does, because all indications are that it will eventually get done. This could carry out past the draft in the summer, but let's say eventually it gets done and that Aaron Rodgers is a Jet. Out of all of these teams, do you think any of them will be worse than the Tennessee Titans this year?
Realistically, if there is one, and I think it would be cutting it close, is the Dolphins.
Really?
I kind of think so, because if you look and see that, I think this is why it's really tough for me personally. Now, they all could be doing way better than Tennessee. They honestly could, because they're all very talented quarterbacks. And hopefully Zach Wilson, if this trade does get done, like you said, Junnie, he can kind of learn from this veteran quarterback and kind of pass that baton on to him. And it's kind of weird because it's like giving your car keys to someone else to drive for a little bit, then you just get the same car back. But, But when you just look at what the Dolphins had to go through last year as a squad, and Tyreek is a threat. He's a dog. Like, he will carry them. He absolutely will. I just think when you look at how they have run their offense, I don't know if it's going to be capable of keeping up with the Titans long term. Now, hopefully, and cross your fingers that everything goes well for the Titans this year health-wise, because they went through the ringer again this year. And I know that's going to be a factor for everybody. But as we know in this market, because we talked about it all season long, they were hurt. They had a lot of problems. If the Titans are healthy, I think they are better than the Miami Dolphins. I can confidently say that.
That is crazy to me. That is absolutely – I mean, because think about it. They got Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and then you look defensively, they went out and got Jalen Ramsey. So Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard are probably the best corner duo. Miami's defense was pretty solid last year, traded for Bradley Chubb. I actually think the Dolphins have a significant chance, even with Aaron Rodgers at the Jets, to maybe surprise people and win the division if Tua is healthy. Now, that is a question, though. This is a genuine question.
Right.
If Tua's not healthy, and let's say the Dolphins go into a game with the Tennessee Titans and Tua's not healthy, just per se, I don't even think they're playing each other. But I would strongly consider the Titans in that point. Tua is the driving horse. When he's healthy with this stacked of a roster, the sky's the limit because the offense we've seen them keep up with the Bills in other major games where they're just throwing up 30 points a game. And with the improvements they've made on defense, I think they have one of the better rosters in the AFC. But back to the question and comparing all of these, teams in the AFC East compared to the Tennessee Titans, I would say the one that significantly stands out to me would be the New England Patriots.
Okay.
Mac Jones has, been on the trading block rumor mill that he might not be there, that he might not be taking this team over the top. So I would say right now, I think the team that's the easiest to go with would be the New England Patriots, because I would take Tannehill, the Titans defense over the Patriots defense. And I think with Derrick Henry and what they like to do on offense, I think that would put them over the top, because really New England doesn't have very many receiving threats either, similar to the Titans.
They just lost a few too. So, and just to take a couple of steps back here, I totally forgot about the Jalen Ramsey trade because I was out of town when that happened. But man, yeah, the cornerbacks are going to be a very big dual threat for them. Defensively, that is something I left out. They will be better than the Titans. We'll see what we'll see what the Titans roll up with this fall. But I think that's a fair point when you talk about the Pats, because they did have that quarterback controversy just a smidge.
With our WKU quarterback,
yes, they
Bailey
did.
Zappi. And there's rumors around the locker room that they say that some people prefer Bailey Zappi.
And I thought he threw the ball well.
He did. He played great.
Balling.
He played absolutely great. Almost got a win in Lambeau, too.
He is a humble guy. I know that you weren't around Western as much while he was there.
Yes.
But when I got to go to practice and talk to him and interview him and just get to know him even off the record, he's an awesome guy. He's a guy that is really humble as well. He's someone that honestly, he's a really good leader too. Because I talked to the Stearns brothers, Jareth, and I forgot his brother's name. I think it's Josh.
Yes, it is Josh.
And their third brother plays in the NFL, I believe, too, because Jareth, I believe, was with the Bucks at training camp this fall.
Yes, he was.
So that was fun. Not to retrace my steps too much with Western days, but he was a really cool quarterback to get to know. He's more than capable of it.
Okay, so final answer in the AFC East. Which team are you selecting? Are you still saying the Dolphins are going to be worse than the Titans this upcoming season? And again, this is all based on the roster and what we have on the teams right now. This is way too early. This is way too early. But we're going to go through this just to show you, the fans, on where the Titans are so that we can get some realistic expectations for this season. So final answer, AFC East, which teams are worse? I'm locking in the Patriots. I'm saying the Jets with Aaron Rodgers, Dolphins, and Bills right now all have better rosters going into this season.
I'm not going to say you convinced me, because I looked at my iPad and looked at a few more little things. I looked at the roster. I do agree that the Patriots would be the team that would not be as good as the Titans. I will still hold out a little bit of hope that we'll see what Tua looks like health-wise, because, look, we know what he had going on for him. He has to stay healthy. If he can't, that's a huge problem. It's a huge problem for them. So,
no, most definitely. And that would be a huge indicator on how the Dolphins seasons are going to go. So right now, Nick has questions about the Miami Dolphins. So you have the Broncos, the Ravens if they don't have Lamar, the Patriots, and that's it. That's it. Just 4 teams so far. So let's go into this the last division, the Titans' own division in the AFC South. Let's start with the Jags, Colts, and Texans.
All right.
Where do the Titans match up with this? Because I think that this might be the easiest one to go through.
I think it will be too. And I'm curious to see what it looks like after the draft. Obviously,
very much so. Very much
because
so.
That's going to factor with who you have on your roster, because we've heard a couple of days most recently where it's been kind of thrown out there that, well, hey, will the Texans not take a quarterback? Well, surely they will, right? Everybody thinks so. I mean, that's just the inevitable. Well, they could not take one. They could go take a pass rusher. I don't know, but honestly, if they take a quarterback, Junnie, I mean, I still think they're at the bottom of this division. I still think they are. If they're,
I would agree.
If they don't take a quarterback, it will more than likely be the Titans or the Colts at the bottom, depending on how they go against each other in the division. But if they don't take a quarterback down there in Houston, because, like you said the other day, a lot of credit to them for keeping Davis Mills if they do.
Yeah.
I think that'd be awesome. But I don't think it's going to be enough to be anywhere near away from the bottom of that division.
So I'm going to agree with you. Even if both the Texans and Colts go out and get their franchise quarterbacks, I still think that they are worse than the Titans as currently constructed. I mean, rookie quarterbacks always tend to struggle. And when the Titans defense is healthy, they're one of the most elite defenses in the league. And I would say that those guys would struggle, especially if you get like an Anthony Richardson. He's likely going to sit. Gardner Minshew's not going to light up that defense. And then when you look at the Houston Texans, even if they don't go QB, we've seen what Davis Mills is. And even if they do get a Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, those guys are going to struggle. And the guy they just signed, Jeffrey Simmons, is not going to, make sure that they get an easy pass. So right now, for me, I have the Raiders, I have the Patriots, the Texans, and Colts. So only 4 teams in the AFC that are genuinely worse than the Titans that I would make a solid pick as to being worse than the Titans this year. You have the Broncos, Colts, Texans, Dolphins, Patriots, and a iffy one with the Ravens on the potential of losing Lamar Jackson. But
quite iffy.
For me, I would say if Odell's coming to the Ravens, I think that even though they're not going to say it, I say that that's a pretty good indicator that Lamar is likely
I would
going
sure
to
hope
stay.
so.
But with that being said, why do we have these concerns? And for me, it's 2 things. The Titans receiving core and the fact that I don't believe that Treylon Burks is going to be a true number 1. Again, it's way too early. He was banged up a bunch this season, but I'm not very confident that he is a true number 1 receiver. And how confident are we in this offensive line? They go out and get Brunskill from the 49ers. He was kind of in and out of that starting lineup. Andre Dillard from the Eagles, he was a backup as well. Signing Nicholas Petit-Frere, can he have a better season after his rookie year? Can he take that second-year leap? Aaron Brewer, getting that second-round tender, I think they overpaid for him a little bit. He's very undersized. There's just so many question marks on a key positioning group that the Titans struggled with last season, and it seems like this was more a patchwork and hoping that some of these guys pan out rather than knowing they're going to pan out. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. And the 2 biggest positions for me, if Byard is not a Titan, safety is a big question mark for me, in the trenches as well. I think that's the biggest question for me, is what are they going to look like in the trenches this year on offense and defense? Jared has been bamming this home all week, and I've heard him. Dillard is not starting capability at that spot. He's not.
Well, here's the thing with Dillard for me.
He's had some reps. Don't get me wrong. I think he's capable. He truly is. The other spot that I look at too is wide receiver too. I think that's the obvious thing, right? Who are we throwing the ball to? And I thought this was an interesting point that I made last week too, was if we do go get a wide receiver, and that takes pressure off of Treylon. He had so much pressure on him this year. If he is able to get that pressure taken off of him even a little bit this year, I think he thrives because he can kind of work with that other young wide receiver. If they go get another kind of veteran wide receiver, not saying anywhere better than like a Robert Woods, who was thankful to get out of here, but if we bring in someone that can kind of mentor these guys, that's going to be the biggest thing for me. But the battle in the trenches, I think, is the most valuable thing that the Titans will have, considering the fact, Junnie, that we need to have Derrick Henry just give us all that he's got this year. This is perhaps going to be one of our final years with Derrick Henry and even perhaps at his best. So if he can give us what he gave us before he got hurt with the foot injury, if he can be that type of guy again, Titans are going to be one hell of a dangerous team. So, but those are the biggest indicators for me with the Titans, comparing them to those teams in the division that we've already talked about, because I think some of those teams are going to be more than capable of being better in the trenches, and they've got some better weapons. Huge questions for Mike Vrabel and the Titans going into the draft.
Huge questions indeed. We're going to get into the Titans a little bit more in the second hour of Michelle and Junnie. But coming up next, the Memphis Grizzlies are taking on LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers. We have Keith Parrish, host of the Fast Break Breakfast and the host of Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. We're going to talk to him about this series coming up next and the Memphis Grizzlies' chances on going on a run. You're listening to the Michelle and Junnie Show here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
Nashville's radio version of The Odd Couple.
This number makes more sense.
It does not make more sense.
It's absolutely.
Robby, Stanley, and Joe Rexrode are Robby and Rexrode.
Yay, we win. We don't. We lose. No, I disagree.
Robby and Rexrode. Mornings from 6 to 9.
If you're good enough, you're good enough. It's absurd.
On 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This week at the Electronic Express Spring Clearance event, get instant savings of up to 40% off in every department, including all 4K TVs, laptops and tablets, housewares, gaming consoles, speakers, and more. At Electronic Express, we have up to 50% off all your appliance needs in stock and ready to deliver. Plus, buy now, pay later with up to 3 years free financing. Shop the Spring Clearance event at Electronic Express. We make it happen.
What if you could be credit card debt-free in 10 days and save as much as $1,000 a month? Loan Pronto's all-new Express Equity Line of Credit program is just what you need. Willie Donick here. You don't have to do a full home refi. You can tap a small portion of the equity you have and enjoy a super low monthly payment. With Loan Pronto's Express Equity Credit Line, you can close in 7 to 10 days, and a $50,000 loan would only cost you around $400 a month. Use that money to pay off high-interest credit cards or do a home improvement. You can access up to 90% of your home's equity, and 9 out of 10 homeowners won't even need an appraisal. Even if you did a total refi recently or just bought your home, you can tap the equity with this fast, easy program. Stop the madness and say no to 24% interest fees. Call Loan Pronto today. 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
102.5 and 106.3 The Game is live and local.
And now, let's meet the starting lineups.
Robby and Rexrode 6 to 9.
You are talking about a team that's building a roster.
Chase and Michelle 9 to 11.
He's still under contract.
It's not always X's and O's.
Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace 11 to 2.
Trades, free agents.
Let's get it going. I think this is a good hire.
And Stillman and Company 2 to 6.
I can give you one of the best coaches in the league.
And don't forget, we're your home for all things Nashville.
He scored!
Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. This is Michelle and Junnie.
Well, thank you so much.
Presented by Superbook Sports on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and on the Game Nashville app.
Welcome back into the Michelle and Junnie Show. We are going to get into the Memphis Grizzlies, and the individual that we are bringing on this morning is going to be Keith Parrish, host of the Fast Break Breakfast and the host of Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Keith, welcome into the show this morning. How are we doing?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Doing just fine. So, interesting time here for the state of Tennessee. Some Nashvillians really get into the Memphis Grizzlies as we're trying to kind of egg them on now that the Predator season is over to go all in on this Grizzlies team. Can you kind of talk about this huge matchup that John Morant and this Grizzlies team have against LeBron and the Lakers, and who kind of wins the matchup on the paper of things?
Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting matchup. You got a young, exciting team in the Memphis Grizzlies, and then obviously you have one of the greatest players of all time in LeBron James, also a future Hall of Famer Anthony Davis, and the league's arguably marquee franchise in the Lakers. So, it's a perfect matchup. It's a good kind of mismatch of styles a little bit, and the fact that you have this young, brash, small market team against this huge market older squad. And I think, there's a lot of stats that both fan bases can argue to favor their own team. I think on paper, it looks like the Grizzlies are to be favored, but I think the kind of the X factor is, but they have LeBron James.
No, most certainly, and I've seen a lot of people say that because the Lakers were kind of dead in the water just a few months ago, and him along with some great play from Anthony Davis has kind of lured them into this situation that they're in now. But I kind of want to touch on something that happened earlier this year when they were playing out in L.A. and Ja Morant and his father T. Morant. Also with like Desmond Bane and Dylan Brooks was getting the mix with like Shannon Sharp out there in Los Angeles. There was a whole controversy, and I know that probably doesn't carry over to now, but is there some sort of like rivalry or animosity towards these two teams that might make this just a little bit more compelling outside of the game on the floor?
Well, I think, yes, there is, but also just the playoffs in on their own with like LeBron James doesn't want to go home. He doesn't want to lose in the first round. So like that honestly provides enough juice. But I do think the Grizzlies and Lakers particularly have had some run-ins. It was a couple of years ago where basically it was a coming out party for the Grizzlies when Ja Morant had a famous block on Avery Bradley. It's one of the most spectacular defensive plays you'll ever see. Desmond Bane was talking trash to LeBron James. At that point, a lot of Lakers fans and national NBA fans weren't even sure who Desmond Bane was. And Desmond Bane said something to LeBron. It was the gist of no one's scared of your footsteps. Like when LeBron was trying to like make him miss a shot, and the Grizzlies ran them out of the gym, a few years ago. And so each matchup has been, again, this like young brash team, and maybe LeBron trying to put them in their place. But the Grizzlies have been the superior team the past few seasons, so there's a little something extra. And of course, that game, that Shannon Sharp game, that crossed over for non-NBA fans. Everyone saw that on SportsCenter, and it provided a lot of fun social media traction. So I do think, there's something extra. These teams don't particularly like each other.
No, they don't. Keith Parrish is with us, host of Fast Break Breakfast, and I want to go in this direction here for just a second because we all know that Steven Adams is currently out. So, one, what does that mean for the Grizzlies, and how are they going to be able to go up against the Lakers in terms of matchup? And I also know that a former Conference USA guy in Kenneth Lofton Jr. is also there waiting for his chance to thrive. What can you say about him?
Well, let's start with Kenneth Lofton Jr. He's a fun story. He's a popular guy. Whenever he gets on the court, everyone goes nuts. He scored 42 points in the final game of the regular season when both teams weren't really playing their regular players. They added him to their regular roster, so he'd be available for the playoffs, basically as a response to Steven Adams being out. But I don't think he's going to play. I don't think he's going to be in the normal rotation, despite the fact that he can put the ball in the basket. As far as the Steven Adams injury, it's a huge issue for the Grizzlies, and it's a reason why a lot of people are picking the Lakers, to win this as a 7 seed. If Steven Adams was healthy, I think every NBA expert would basically be picking the Grizzlies to win. Without Steven Adams, the Grizzlies have to rely more on basically making their first shot. Their identity the last 2 years was, hey, it doesn't matter if we miss, we'll get the offensive rebound and we'll put it back in. And they were an elite offensive rebounding team for the past 2 seasons up until Steven Adams left. Now they're no longer a good offensive rebounding team, and the Lakers are a particularly good rebounding team overall. So, that's something where the statistics favor the Lakers. But where the Grizzlies are going to get extra possessions is forcing turnovers. The Lakers aren't particularly good at taking care of the basketball. The Grizzlies are great at taking care of the basketball and also good at forcing turnovers. And the Grizzlies now, since the trade deadline, have a 3-point shooting advantage, which is really strange for Grizzlies fans to say because we've never had that before. So the Grizzlies, hopefully, with the addition of Luke Kennard at the trade deadline, are going to make a lot more threes, or at least some more threes than the Lakers, and that's where hopefully they will make up for the loss of Steven Adams.
Yeah, hopefully they can make up for it. But, Keith, I got and they're 35-6. Yeah. I know that they're 16-25 on the road this year. But what can you say about the environment that the home – I was about to say home field – what the home arena can do for them here in the postseason?
Yeah, they had the most home wins for any team since the Warriors super team of 2016-2017 this year. They were absolutely dominant at home. They were undefeated on Friday and Saturday nights at home. If you've never been to a Grizzlies game in Memphis, you got to go. It's a little pricey to catch the Lakers this go around, but like it's an incredible atmosphere. The fans are loud and excited and engaged, and this Grizzlies team this season has been absolutely dominant at home. So hopefully, even if these teams match up pretty evenly, it's going to be home court advantage for the Grizzlies, which swings the series.
102.5 The Game is going to be joining Keith in Grind City this Sunday at Nobles in East Nashville. Tip-off between the Lakers and Grizzlies for Game 1 is going to be at 2 o'clock. Keith, can you kind of give Nobles a bit of a shout-out? I know y'all been doing some watch parties there. Sean's been telling me that it is a packed house every single time that y'all are out there. So if you are a Nashville fan, you might want to tune into this because this could be a really great opportunity for you to come join and cheer on the Grizzlies with a bunch of other fans. Can you kind of touch on how that started and how successful those have been?
Right. So earlier you were saying, you guys are hoping to push a lot of, there's a lot of Grizzlies fans in Nashville, and you're trying to nudge the Nashville basketball fans and football, Predators fans, whoever, into cheering for the Grizzlies. There are tons of NBA fans in Nashville. There are people like myself who are basically from the area and just started cheering for the Grizzlies when they moved to Memphis. And then there's a lot of people, who went to school in Memphis or have moved to Nashville for work from Memphis. There's a lot of Grizzlies fans here. There's a lot of NBA fans here. So I've been hosting these Grizzlies watch parties with my buddies from the podcast Fast Break Breakfast. We've been doing it for years, but this iteration of the Grizzlies with John Morant, obviously super popular, and they're really good. And so we've had a lot of success having people come out to Noble's Beer Hall and cheering on the Grizzlies. Last year for the playoffs, the place was packed, and that was just a very interesting and unique and exciting atmosphere to be in Nashville and have like a packed bar upstairs and downstairs of people just chanting for the Grizzlies, going nuts. Nobles has been really cool for us. Like they'll stay open late, like keep the downstairs open. They normally shut it down almost like 9 or 10, but they'll stay open whenever the Grizzlies are playing. And we have a lot of people come out, and we're going to give away prizes. We got a lot of good giveaways for people who come out. So it's been a lot of fun seeing not just Grizzlies fans, but like how the fan base has grown in Nashville, specifically among even people who don't necessarily have any kind of connection to Memphis.
Absolutely. Keith, we appreciate you taking the time to join us today and preview this Lakers-Grizzlies series. Please, if you are interested in watching the Grizzlies take on the Lakers, check out that watch party at Nobles in East Nashville. It is going to be a packed house. We'll be giving out concert tickets. Chase McKay is going to be giving out season opening tickets to the Nashville Predators. It's going to be a great time. Keith, again, thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, guys. Again, that was Keith Parrish, host of Fast Break Breakfast and Grits and Grinds Memphis Grizzlies podcast. You can check that out on all different podcasting platforms. But coming up next, we are going to kind of go into some national narratives around the National Football League. Some interesting news coming out about the Houston Texans and what they will do with the number 2 overall pick. You've been listening to the Michelle and Junnie Show here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
185! Every team needs a quarterback.
185! Take!
That's why we have
Hasselbeck, bootleg, rollout, toss, touchdown!
Tim.
You can run good plays at the right time.
ESPN NFL analyst Tim Hasselbeck gives his expertise on all things NFL.
You evaluate players, and then you're turning them over to the coaching staff.
Every Tuesday at noon.
At the right time.
With Caroline, Willie, and D-Mace. Tim on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
ElectronicExpress.com. We make it happen.
Genesis Diamond's most anticipated event of the year is coming next weekend, April 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. Huge store-wide savings, plus the unveiling of thousands of new, unique designs from the biggest names in jewelry. All new collections from names like Tacori, Verragio, and more. Rings, earrings, pendants, bands, many never seen before, all specially priced. Save up to 35% store-wide and get zero interest financing. Special pricing on natural and lab-grown diamonds, April 21st through the 23rd. Only at Genesis Diamonds and luxury pre-owned Rolexes, Green Hills and Cool Springs. See store for details.
Hey, what's up? It's Chase McCabe for Superbook Sports. Baseball is back, and the push for the postseason is on for hockey and hoops. Make it all count this spring with Superbook Sports. Superbook Sports is the best wagering app around with a direct line to experienced bookmakers behind the counter in Las Vegas. Plus, you can get a $250 bonus when you sign up, deposit, and wager all in the same day. Don't let spring pass you by without winning money with Superbook Sports. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789.
Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. WPRT FM Pegram, WPUZ HD2 Laverne.
Robby and Rexroad. Chase and Michelle.
Caroline, Willie, D-Base.
Stone Company.
Nashville's best sports talk.
Crank it up.
102.5 and 106.3.
Crank City score.
On both sides of the ball.
One big possession.
Touchdown, Middle Tennessee.
The game.
A Cromwell media station.
Discussing the big sports stories of the weekend. This is Michelle and Junnie. With Michelle Knezovic and Junnie Riddle. Presented by Superbook Sports on 102.5 and 106.3. The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Hour number 2 of Michelle and Junnie. Nick Keyser in for Michelle Knezovic, who is out on vacation. I think she's at a women's conference in Charlotte. Like
she is.
Is it for sports related? Listen, I should know this because Michelle and I are hosts. I just know she's at some kind of promotional conference, promoting women in the industry, which is always really good because, we wanted to see good diversity and women getting their opportunities in fields outside of, the norm. But
so she is at the Association for Women in Sports Media Conference.
Yep, there
in
we
North
go.
Carolina.
There we go. So, our own Caroline Fenton, Michelle Knezovic, we enjoy having women in here giving their perspective and having the opportunity to voice their opinion on sports. It's always good to have that. So shout out to Michelle.
Yep.
Going out and doing the due diligence for the next generation. Keep it up. You're doing great work. But we teased before the break that we were going to kind of go into some national headlines when it comes to the National Football League. And the one thing that really interests me has been this notion about the Houston Texans and what they're going to do with the number 2 pick, because consensusly, or I don't even know if that's a word, the consensus has been that the Houston Texans are going to take a quarterback with number 2 overall. But I heard Adam Schefter go on ESPN this past week, and he had something to say about what the Houston Texans might do with the number 2 overall pick. We got that audio right here.
I think there's a lot of conflicting signals and information out there about what Houston is going to do at 2. And I think a lot of people have assumed it's just going to be a quarterback. And in the end, I'm just not convinced just yet that that's going to be the case.
That was Adam Schefter talking about the Houston Texans and how they might not take a quarterback with the number 2 overall pick, which just makes things a lot more interesting, Nick. Because when you look at the quarterback-needy teams in this draft, 3 of them are in the same division. And when you look at teams like trying to trade up, it makes it seem as if the Houston Texans might either, trying to throw some smoke screen out about the possibility of them not taking a quarterback or what it is. But I just can't imagine with the situation that they're in. I know that the Bears originally had the number 1 overall pick, but they already have their franchise quarterback. If there was any team that needed to go out and get their guy this year, it would have been Houston.
You would have thought I just pulled myself a Joe Rexroad.
You did pull a Joe Rexroad.
I am very embarrassed by that.
Mute 1 for Nick Keyser.
That's 1. Keep the counter up. Well, Joe and I talked about mutes last night a little bit. But, look, this is an interesting little tidbit that we have from Schefter. And, I mean, personally, I don't think there's too much to make of it yet. I think we need a couple more developments to come up for us to truly figure out what in the world is going on. Because could they be interested in a guy like Will Anderson over a quarterback? I don't know necessarily, but while we were talking about the divisions, that's why I was bringing up, okay, it's not going to matter if they draft a quarterback over, this edge rusher maybe, or if they go get a different weapon like a Jalen Carter maybe. But look, ultimately, when it comes down to how they're thinking, it's like you said, it could be a smokescreen. I think that's a fair way to put it. But when you look at all of these weapons that are out there right now, early in the first round, you have Peter Skoronski, Devin Witherspoon. I know Richardson's been rumored to go in that top 3 as well. So could they shock us and go him? I don't know. But personally, I think they need to take a CJ Stroud. I mean, it sounds like that might be a conflicting report that we have after hearing some things this week, which is very interesting to me, which you can't take someone, or you can't not take someone just because of their representation. That is crazy to me. I cannot believe that would be a reason why you wouldn't take anybody. So if they don't take him for that, I would be so frustrated if I was a Texans fan, because if you are robbed of someone that can help bring your franchise out of the gutter and bring you back to the top of the AFC South, that's embarrassing if you can't get someone. So, just that is so conflicting. Like, when I heard that this week, I just didn't know what direction they would truly go in. So I think they will end up getting a quarterback eventually. I mean, truly, I think that's the case, Junnie. But in your eyes, if they didn't take a guy that was a good pocket passer, who would they take?
I mean, obviously, it would have to be, best player available, or if I were them, I would look to trade back. The Houston Texans are in a really interesting situation here to where, they just hired a brand new coach, and I know that they fired their last two coaches. I just don't think they would be willing to do that 3 years in a row. And DeMeco Ryans, I mean, he was a hot head coaching candidate, and they would, he's going to get another job in a second. But with all that being said, I see Houston as, I don't think it's crazy to think that they wouldn't take a quarterback. I look at next year's draft, and this is something that I've been a huge proponent of, is that the quarterback class coming out next year is a lot better than this one.
Yep.
Will Levis and Anthony Richardson have a lot of question marks with their game. They have the upside, but they're going to have to go somewhere that's really refined. Hendon Hooker's coming off an ACL. He's older. Was it the Tennessee, offense that really made him shine? And then Bryce Young with his size. C.J. Stroud didn't really look all that great this year until the Georgia game. There's just so many questions about these guys coming out this year that Houston might look at it as, there's going to be somebody willing to trade up with us for the number 2 overall pick. There always is going to be. And if we trade back and we get a first-round pick next year, regardless of how our season goes, we can have assets to either move up, or we will be bad enough to go out and get our guy that we see as more of a surefire prospect for next year. And Houston has that availability. I mean, they don't have any expectations. Even if they draft a quarterback this year, we don't expect them to be a very good team. So what is delaying the inevitable in going out and getting your guy next year? It's just food for thought.
It is.
And when it comes down to C.J. Stroud and his representation and the Texans not wanting to deal with that, listen, you can call it crazy. I don't think it's all that crazy.
I don't think it is either, because you have to think, too, they had J.J. Watt for a long time.
Yeah.
They're going to want someone, in my eyes, because DeMeco's coming in and he knows what you need on that end to be a successful franchise. Remember how good they were on defense? They had Matt Schaub slinging the ball around. I thought he was doing a good job.
Mm-hmm.
They also had great weapons at wide receiver. And I always love, like when I was growing up, Cortland Finnegan getting into it with,
Andre
all
Johnson.
of their entire staff. That was the one that always came to mind, was the fight with Andre Johnson. But look, this team on defense, they used to be the hardest team for the Titans to go up against almost every single year when they were healthy. They had J.J. Watt. Look, if they can get back to that, I don't blame them for skipping over a quarterback now. It's a very strong argument, I think, for them to pass up on a quarterback and maybe take someone either on the edge or take someone on the line to help build it up for the future. I don't blame them if they do that.
The thing about Houston is they actually have a really good offensive line. They just got Laramie Tunsil signed up for the next couple years. They traded with the Buccaneers. I think it was it Shaq Mason they traded from the Bucs. So, they have a really solid offensive line, which is good for a rookie prospect to come in. But, they have a bunch of other holes. They need to go out and draft a receiver. Right now, their best receiver is Robert Woods. We just saw that experiment here in Tennessee. Not really expecting a lot. And like you said, their defense isn't as daunting as it's been in the past. So they could really use this year to really patch up those holes. They got a lot of cap space and really build their team around to go out and get their franchise quarterback next year in a more solidified draft. So it's not that crazy. But another quarterback situation, and we kind of touched on it a bit
man.
earlier, has been this Aaron Rodgers to the Jets thing. Like, apparently the Green Bay Packers are stuck in their heels about getting a first-round pick in some form or fashion. The Jets don't want to do that because they don't want to, be the Broncos who gave up multiple first and seconds to get Russell Wilson and then fall flat on their face. Or, Rodgers ends up retiring after a year, and then you give up your future, to build around him. So with all that being said, like, what do you think the Jets are going to do if this Rodgers thing doesn't pan out? Because they're in a win now mode.
Oh, I can't imagine if that doesn't happen, Junnie. Because look, if he's a guy that he goes into this darkness, he's like, okay, let me think about these things and I'll come back to you. It's like, all right, make up your mind, man. Like, he's had so much drama around him for years. I know that this has just been I think it's been a smidge of what he really is. If this does not happen, man, are they in a hole, because they're going to dig themselves even deeper into their situation with Zach Wilson and what they have for their future plans. Because, look, not giving up a first-round pick, I understand that because of what happened with Russell. It's comparable in that regard because you're going to get a veteran guy. He's proven, what he is capable of. These are all things. These are not absolutes, obviously. You don't know what you'll get in him until he gets on the gridiron and he starts throwing the ball around and makes big plays. Then you'll know what you have. Because Aaron, no one's going to be the same every year the older you get unless you're Tom freaking Brady.
Sure.
But Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets, I think, this is just me personally speaking, are they really going to be that much better of a team if they have him?
I genuinely think so.
They could be.
Last year, Garrett Wilson, he won Rookie of the Year. Sauce Gardner won Defensive Rookie of the Year. They got Breece Hall, which he was looking like he could have been Offensive Rookie of the Year. They had an extremely good draft class last year in positions of need. They got two really good weapons going forward, which I think they're both going to be really good. If you're into fantasy, I would look at drafting them. The one thing they didn't have was consistent quarterback play.
That's true.
And, with their offensive line the way that it was, they've been doing some rebuilding on that this offseason. Mekhi Becton, somebody I know personally, he played at Louisville, was a left tackle prospect that they've drafted. He's lost a ton of weight. He's done a lot of work this offseason, and he was banged up last year. And when he's back in the mix, their offensive line plays a lot better. So, Mike White was getting beat up last year. I kind of think Mike White is, as much as we love him as WKU grads,
he's not going to be the leader of that football team.
He was a really good backup. Now he's down in Miami. He's Tua's backup now. They have Zach Wilson, which he looks like a giant bust, and I wouldn't trust him with this roster because he's just going to hold them back. You give Aaron Rodgers this defense that was ranked in the top 10, hands down, probably if the offense wasn't given the ball back so much, probably would have been a top 5 defense just based on pure talent that they have there. You have a good running game, you have good receivers, and then you put that quarterback in there, that veteran that's been there, MVP Aaron Rodgers. I really do think that takes them over the top.
Okay, that's fair. I think that is a very fair way to go about it because that is a question I think if you're a Jets fan, you should be thinking to yourself. I'm not saying Aaron's going to come in and stink it up. I don't think he's going to be as bad as Russell Wilson was. By no stretch am I saying that. But if he does come in, if he's not as good as he was last year, but he still is able to throw the ball, be accurate, and call the plays in a good way, I think they're set up for success. Well, I think you have a good point.
I think he's set up as well because his former offensive coordinator that he won 2 MVPs with, Nathaniel Hackett, is now the offensive coordinator of the Jets after being let go from the Denver Broncos under one season. It's interesting. It's food for thought, but the whole Aaron Rodgers situations, what the Texans are going to do, it all has implications on the Tennessee Titans because if the Texans start making the right moves and start bolstering their roster and the Jets go and get a guy like Aaron Rodgers to go around their young and up-and-coming roster, this is just knocking the Titans down further in the AFC rankings, making it a lot harder for this team that has a bunch of holes to be competitive. So we will see what is going on. But we're going to kind of get back in to the Nashville Predators coming up next. I want to talk to Nick about some of these young guys that came in and stepped in, and if he believes that they will be on the opening day roster coming up. We'll also talk a bit about John Hines and his job security and what he did this season. We will get all into that next. You are listening to the Michelle and Junnie Show here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
When it comes to Nashville sports,
locking up Jeffrey Simmons, clearly that was a priority for them.
He knows his stuff.
A little bit good, a little bit bad.
And knows how to push the right buttons.
He's coming off an ACL tear, and he's 25 years old, so you cannot ignore that.
Join Outkick's Chad Withrow every Friday at 5 with Stillman and Company. Withrow.
What I hate more than anything is people that are phony and not true to themselves.
Is on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Tonight, Sounds Baseball is celebrating Hit City Saturday with the Predators. The first 1,000 fans will take home a Hit City Predators hockey jersey to rep your Nashville teams year-round. You can also enjoy live music before the 6:35 first pitch. Visit NashvilleSounds.com for tickets.
Nashville's best deal of the week is Joyland in East Nashville. Joyland is a fun new concept by celebrity chef Sean Brock, inspired by his love for cheeseburgers, shakes, buttermilk biscuits, fries, and fried chicken. Get half off a $30 gift card at thegamenashville.com/deals and enjoy the best burger in town. Find some joy today and eat Joyland for half off with Nashville's best deal of the week. That's thegamenashville.com/deals.
The NBA playoffs are here, folks, and you can turn crossovers into cash with FanDuel Sportsbook. Joe Rex here to let you know. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/Joe102. Right now, place $5 bet. You get an instant $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. A lot going on with the playoffs. Of course, it's going to be an exciting playoffs. Again, I'm big on the Dubs. I think Andrew Wiggins coming back. It's going to be really interesting for the Golden State Warriors. But so many different ways you can go. Just do it on FanDuel. Safe and secure. You get paid instantly. You got a spot for the bets you'll like and great promotions every day. Easy to use. Big thing with me. No better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Go to FanDuel.com/Joe102. Sign up to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet your first $5. FanDuel's an official sports betting partner of the NBA, and you must be 21 or older and present Tennessee. Bonus issued is no withdrawable bonus sets, so it expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line 800-889-9789.
Gary Ashton here. People walk up to me all the time and say, "Don't sell without the intel." This message couldn't be more true. Right now, it's a fantastic time to buy or sell your home in Nashville, but you can't do it without the intel. No one has more intel than the Gary Ashton team. So what is this intel we keep hearing about? Intel so you can sell your home without stagings or showings? Intel on where to find your next home so that you can sell your current home while the market is hot? And intel that helps you win the buyer battle and cash in on your home equity. For more intel, visit GaryAshton.com, where we can give you the insight and the most up-to-date real estate intel in Nashville. Plus, the Gary Ashton team is the official real estate team of the Nashville Predators. Get the confidence to sell your home and find the dream address without the stress. Visit us today at GaryAshton.com. That's GaryAshton.com. And remember, don't sell without the intel.
Want to see our smiling faces? You can watch us on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live.
We are good to go.
Presented by Superbook Sports, voted #1 sportsbook in Vegas. This is Michelle and Judy.
Really? That's fantastic.
Presented by Superbook Sports on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and on the Game Nashville app.
It was a fun stretch for you personally these last 5-6 weeks. Was it more fun, doing what you guys did here the last 5-6 weeks and maybe, with the pressure off a little bit, I guess you might say?
Well, I wouldn't say, from our standpoint, we didn't feel like the pressure was off. It's almost like you have to pivot. We weren't far out of the playoffs when we made the decision to make the moves that we made. But then it's on everybody, the coaches and players, to try to remain. It's the NHL. Your job is to be able to win and be competitive, and regardless of what the circumstances are. And to me, that's what I think the coaches and players together embraced. And I've said it a lot. You got to be where your feet are, and you have to understand, you can't look for a different situation or want something different or complain about what's going on. You have to find what are the actions and attitudes and mindsets that we have to give ourselves a chance to be successful in this situation, and that was the challenge. And I think when you coach, that's what you're so focused on is what are the things we have to do now to try to give ourselves a chance to be successful, and you're fully embedded in that. And that's what, that was the challenge. There's different challenges all the time. But I think the group we had the opportunity to work with down the stretch, that's what made it fun.
That was John Hines talking about this young Preds core. Whether or not there was pressure going into this tail end of the season post-deadline. A lot of stuff there, Nick, that we need to get into. You're listening to the Michelle and Junnie Show here on 102.5 and 106.3. The Game. Nick Keyser filling in for Michelle Knezovic on this Saturday morning. So let's get into this about John Hines. Obviously, I think the pressure is always going to be still on when the playoffs are still on the line, and we didn't know that the Preds were officially eliminated until after the Winnipeg Jets and Minnesota Wild game this past Tuesday. That made it mathematically impossible for them to get in. But I want to touch a little bit on John Hines and his job security that he has. It's kind of been a tale of really 2 seasons within this season. You make the playoffs last year and you lose Saros. You get swept by the Avalanche that just, kind of ran through the playoffs. And it made you think that you would have been a bit more competitive if he was there. You go out and you get a Nino Niederreiter and a trade for a Ryan McDonough, kind of bolster this core up a bit, and you're expected to be one of the top 3, at least top 4 teams in the Central Division. And the Preds just simply weren't that. And so they move off a bunch of guys at the trade deadline. These young guys come up from Milwaukee and from some trades that they had made, and they start playing immensely better. So with that being said, with Barry Trotz coming in as the new GM, how do you look at this John Hines coaching situation, and do you expect there to be a move made at the head coach of the Nashville Predators before the season opener coming up later this year?
The short answer, and I'll get into it, is no. But John Hines last night, I think the way he spoke about this young group and the plan that he has, I think they really bought in to the belief that they had, not just in his system and what he said between periods at practice, even away from the team, talking to guys one-on-one. I've been part of teams where you have to have a belief in yourself and a belief in your coach and what they want you to be doing at your very best. And I think when you look at guys like a Tomasino, Evangelista, Kiefer Sherwood, and even a Tyson Berry, and obviously Tommy Novak, who in the back half of the year, when they get called upon, they thrived. They were great players to watch. Not to mention that, too, back on defense, we got a guy out of college that came in. We also brought in Spencer Stastny from Milwaukee, and we used so many pieces because of injury. But the way that John Hines went about his business as an NHL coach, I think is a very fair assessment of saying he's going to be fine for now. If it doesn't work out in Barry Trotz's eyes at some point at the early point of next season, move on from him. But for now, I would expect him to be the head coach. And players are meeting with media tomorrow, so we'll get a feel for how everybody's doing. And then we will hear from David Poile, Barry Trotz, and John Hines on Monday. Read into that with what you will, obviously. But they had a great season in terms of growth as a team. No one expected them to be out of the playoffs, quite frankly. They had so many depth signings, Junnie, that I thought in the back of my head, okay, they didn't make a splash, but they did bring in guys that are capable of filling in minutes if they needed to. So Hines had a huge trust on who we had, which they've done a lot of recently, which is not popular by the fans. But he has carried them to the success of, okay, this is a cohesive thing that we have to do to get to the next level as an organization. So overall, I think that's why he's the coach for now. I don't think you'll see him down the line maybe 5 years from now. because Hines is a guy that is trying to fill this gap. He's a developmental coach, obviously from USA Hockey. Poyle brings him in. He's giving him his first crack at, not his first crack, but one of his first few chances in the NHL level.
Yeah.
I think he's done all that he can personally.
And that kind of gets me into this. And I have been waiting to have this conversation with you in particular. We're going to kind of go through all the players that we saw play for the Preds this year. And we're going to say who we think is going to be on the opening day roster. I've made a list of locks, and if you want me to change any of these, I can.
Okay.
But I made a list of locks here that I think that will be for sure on the opening day roster for the Nashville Predators coming up on the 2023-24 season. So my locks are Roman Josi, Philip Forsberg, UC Saros, Kevin Lankinen, Colton Sissons, Ryan McDonough, Tyson Barrie, and Dante Fabro.
Okay.
So those are my locks. Do you have any quarrels with any of those locks?
I don't have any quarrels with your locks because those are all guys that have been mentioned of coming back next year.
Yes.
Barry Trotz was talking with Jared just a few days ago saying that he's going to have a conversation with a guy like Johansson and Fabro.
Yeah.
Those guys are back, obviously. Fabro is a guy that I think the way that we've seen him play the last few games and even maybe last 2 weeks, I think it's a microcosm of what he can be.
Well, and they also re-signed him for next year. So with the money that they're giving him, I just assume that they're going to hang on to him. And, he also highlighted Dante Fabro's development, thought he had kind of reached his ceiling a bit, but, his play this last little bit of the season has kind of showed that maybe he can take it up to another level. So I'm going to start with the maybes. Mm-hmm. And this is the guys, and we're going to kick it off with some veterans that, have underachieved according to their contract, and that the Preds might potentially try and move off via trade this summer. So let's start with the guy who had lost his fingertip this offseason and was making waves with his interviews about that. We'll start with Matt Duchene. Do you think Matt Duchene will be on this Predators team to kick off the season next year?
I can confidently say he will be back.
Really? Okay.
I think he will be back. I think he had a lackluster year, obviously, along with a lot of other guys. However, the way that he plays, I don't think warrants him to be traded or moved away from the Predators. Yes, he didn't have a good year. That's fine. He did not score 40-odd goals this year like he did last year. He'll be back next year, Junnie.
Okay, let's start going through this a little bit more quickly. Ryan Johansson.
He'll be here.
He'll be here, yes. Let's go into some younger guys. Cody Glass.
Cody Glass. And I have said this confidently. Depending on how good of an offseason he has, I think he'll be a top 6 guy.
Really? Okay, top 6 guy. Juuso Parssinen.
Parssinen will be here.
All right, Tommy Novak.
Tommy Novak. And this is where it gets tricky because I've had this conversation before with numerous people. The way that we play with Duchene and when we had Granlund, they switched him at center. I do think Novak plays on this team. I think he's showcased to be a top 6 guy. But look, Hines is going to have a tough choice. I think Barry's going to have a really tough choice. I feel like one of these guys that we have locked in could be traded. I'm just telling you what I think warrants them to stay. But I do think Tommy Novak is here next year solely because of what he has proved here in the short time that he's been in the NHL. He had the same points as Forsberg up until last night. He just passed Forsberg by 1 point to finish the season.
Absolutely. I mean, I think Tommy Novak has to be on this set. But let's get into some other ones. Kiefer Sherwood really quickly.
No. I don't think Kiefer Sherwood will be on the Nashville Predators roster to start next year.
Okay, so potentially in Milwaukee. Okay,
now,
another.
Go ahead.
Another guy, Luke Evangelista.
Evangelista, I think, is the odd man out that starts in Milwaukee.
Okay, so that's a no. Some other interesting ones that we have down here, Jake Livingstone.
Jake Livingstone, interesting because we've not seen enough of him, I think, even though he is a good shutdown guy. This is tough. I haven't seen enough. My gut wants to say yes, he'll be in the NHL on the bottom pairing.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can sign him to a 2-way deal, I would like to have him start in Milwaukee.
Okay.
I personally would like to see him start down there.
Start in Milwaukee. Listen, we didn't get to all of them, but we got to some of the key ones that are really interesting. I think Luke Evangelista, I mean, we saw what Tommy Novak did when he, when he came up last season and only got 7 points in that 27-game span. And how greatly he improved when he got sent back down to Milwaukee. I think that could be really good for a guy like a Luke Evangelista. So coming up next, we're going to be talking to Jay Moore, former Nashville Predator and current radio analyst here for Preds games on 102.5 The Game. We're going to kind of dive into the John Hines, the young guys, and just encapsulate what it meant for the Preds to end the season the way they did. You are listening to Michelle and Junnie here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
All the big plays.
Ball right to score. Yoshi sets up Matt Duchesne.
All the big stories.
For the Predators, are you holding on to what you got, or are you selling some guys off?
All in one place. We are Nashville's best sports talk. 102.5 and 106.3.
Green flag is in the air.
It may not happen that way every game.
His shot stopped.
Play better, gotta coach better.
TD Tigers.
The Game and the Game Nashville app.
It's time for another Kubota field event at Coleman Tractor of White House.
Their biggest sale event of the year will take place in White House on Saturday, April 22nd.
Don't miss this perfect opportunity to demo Kubota tractors, zero-turn mowers, and more. Take advantage of Kubota's competitive financing offers. Receive a coupon for up to $250 off select purchases. Plus, enter to win prizes and free barbecue lunch from 11 to 1. Try it and buy it during the Kubota field event Saturday, April 22nd from 9 to 2 p.m. at Coleman Tractor of White House at 3613 Highway 31 West.
Men, this is Evan Bass with the Tennessee Men's Clinic, and I've been helping men with sexual health issues for many years. I've seen the pain and anxiety that men walk into the clinic with when erectile dysfunction is affecting them. And I also know the heartache and difficulty it can bring to their partner. At the Tennessee Men's Clinic, we've been successfully treating men for ED for many years now. We've seen the amazing impacts that those treatments have on a man's confidence and positivity. And we've seen the wonderful things those treatments also do for a man's relationship. That's why I'm pleased to announce that we are now offering the same great services we offer at our Nashville clinic at our new location in Franklin, which will make it much more convenient for those men living south of Nashville to get treated. So call us today and book your appointment at our Midtown location or at our new clinic in Cool Springs. Your first visit is only $99 and includes blood work and a medical consult. Call 615-208-9090. That's 615-208-9090 or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com.
Visit our website to learn more, including side effects. Treatment sex start results vary.
Genesis Diamond's spectacular spring store-wide sale is coming April 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. 3 incredible days of store-wide savings. Up to 35% off engagement rings, earrings, bracelets, wedding bands, plus special financing. Even Genesis GIA-certified diamonds are marked down. Lab-grown diamonds, too. Plus, top jewelry designers are flying in with all new amazing designs. You can't miss this annual event. Save up to $10,000 on some items. It's April 21st, 22nd, and 23rd only. And only at Genesis Diamonds and luxury pre-owned Rolexes. Green Hills and Cool Springs. See store for details.
Sorry, but we actually have a wait list for our Monstera.
Shaw's greenhouse is really bringing in the green.
We can't keep snake plants in stock.
She needs a construction manager to build on her roots and grow.
We could add a whole section for ferns, and here we'd have dahlias, dahlias, and more dahlias.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
When you want all the
Going in and the score. Blast the score. He wrists one, they score.
and don't forget the
Oh, what a stop. Sliding across to make the save. The backhander, nice stop.
when all you want is Smashville. We have you covered. Hear every Predators game right here. We are your home for Smashville. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. This is Michelle and Junnie.
Well, thank you so much.
Presented by Superbook Sports on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and on the Game Nashville app.
Welcome back into Michelle and Junnie. Nick Keyser filling in for Michelle Knezovic. Just got done talking about the Nashville Predators season as it concluded against the Colorado Avalanche last night. And to kind of recap last night's game and to talk about the season the Nashville Predators just had, we have Jay Moore on the line, brought to you by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, former Nashville Predator and current radio analyst. Jay, how are we doing this Saturday morning?
Hey, doing great, Nick. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Jay, well, thanks for coming on. And, man, what a game last night. But let's go ahead and get started off here because you gave me your business card last night, and it is one hell of a business card. So thank you for passing that along.
Oh, Jay with the fancy card.
Yeah.
You got to have one that's memorable, right? Or else it goes in the file with everybody else's.
Yes, most certainly. So
absolutely. So Jay, you know, they took on the Colorado Avalanche, a team that swept this Preds group in last year's playoff. Really competitive, missing a lot of players, obviously losing some players due to the trade deadline. It kind of encompassed the second half of this season post-trade deadline. Can you talk about this Preds season and how it really defined this group going forward?
Well, I'll start with the games. The last two home games against Minnesota and Colorado, I mean, those are two pretty solid teams. Colorado has built if they're going to have a good run at the Cup again this year, a guy like Nathan McKinnon just really took over the game. He's one of the best players in the game. And I thought it was a great measuring stick to see what we've got, how far, you know, the players have developed, how far this team has come in the last, really, it's a totally different team from opening night. The roster is completely different. So many new players on it, so many young players on it. And to be able to compete with a team like Colorado, we fought our way back into that game last night, being down 3-1, coming back, tying the game. I thought it just said great things about the fight and the culture that the coaching staff and really the culture that's been developed here since 1998 when the Preds were first announced that they were coming to Nashville. You know, it's something that they've worked on. They've had some great people in place to nurture that, and I'm excited for next season. I'm excited for this summer. We've got the draft being held here in Nashville with a tremendous amount of draft picks. So, you know, the management is going to be busy trying to improve, like every other team in the NHL, obviously trying to improve. But I'm really looking forward to this summer and training camp already. And you know, most guys are tired of the season and want to have a little break, but I'm excited and very encouraged.
No, absolutely, Jay. And I think that the entire fan base is really encouraged with what they've seen. The feel around this Predators group went from, you know, it's time for them to sell off and move off this core to how exciting this young group is. The one question that really remains for me is head coach John Hynes, and if he is still going to be here. We see GMs come in all the time and want to go out and get their guy to lead their team. Do you see John Hynes as being safe going into this next year, or do you think that they could potentially make a move this offseason at head coach?
Well, you're exactly right. When a new management comes in, they quite often, you know, are going to address that with whoever they want to bring in, whoever they're comfortable working with. But I will tell you, because I have no idea what they're going to do, I think the coaching staff got the absolute most out of what they had to work with. They had to adapt and had to change many different times throughout the year, and because of what they had to work with, because of so many injuries. And yeah, injuries are going to be, you know, it's a long season. Every team is going to have to go through them. But I just think that bringing as many young players and having to nurture them and bring them along, knowing when to put them out on the ice, because you're still trying to develop these kids, but you've got to put them in key situations, which normally they may not be in. Because you've got veterans filling those roles. But when you lose Forsberg, Duchesne, Yossi, and so many guys at the trade deadline. These youngsters were put into these situations, which is good. But from a coaching staff point of view, sometimes, it's a tough pill to swallow because they're going to make mistakes and it's going to cost you, a goal here and there and may be costing you a game. So I think the coaching staff did a great job. They're I would say a very good staff for a young team like we had. And then, I think we're just going to have to wait and see how things progress over the summer and what the management decides to do.
Jay Moore is with us, former Nashville Predators defenseman and analyst alongside the illustrious voice of Pete Weber this year. Jay, this is a very young team. You just touched on it. The average age was 26 years old, and I know that you were with the team when we first started out. So when you're in that locker room and you're going into that next season as a young group, what do you think some of the biggest takeaways would be after, meshing together, playing in the minors all together? What do you think these guys are thinking about going into next year?
Well, there's going to be a number of these players that are going down to Milwaukee for the playoff push down there. And I think there's probably 6 to 7 players that are going to go down and hopefully have a good run at winning a championship in Milwaukee, which, that's just all part of the development. Going into next season, it's going to be a question of when, where are these youngsters in their development? Yeah, we've had a good run. They play on emotion, for a couple months out of the season. But the NHL is an 82-game schedule. It's a grind. It's grueling night after night. You're going to have to probably surround these guys. We've got guys that were injured. They're going to be back next season, but you've got to find that right chemistry with bringing in some veteran players. When do you sign those, free agents? Are we at that point where we're going to be, are we good enough to get into the playoffs next season and make a statement? So that's what, they're going to have to address. As far as the young players go, their training, they're going to have to just train hard because, at 21 years old, your body you're not fully developed. It's tough to compete an 82-game schedule against guys that are, much older, physically stronger, bigger. So it's going to be a lot of work in the off season. And the guys nowadays train, so hard. It's just a way of life where you just, you don't really have an off season training. These guys train year round. So I would expect everybody will come into camp next season excited, ready to prove themselves and prove that this wasn't, just a good 6 or 8 week run that they had.
Jay, I got one last one here for you, kind of a quick question, because you're a former defenseman as well, and you and I talked last night about how in the second period, the Preds didn't allow any high-danger chances, which is very impressive. And when you look at guys like Jake Livingstone and Spencer Stastny, who have come in along with some other young faces as well, what have you made of this defensive core now that we've seen some guys step up here lately?
Well, you're right that there was a night and day difference from our first period last night to our second period, and that was a tremendous team that we were playing. That they've got a lot of offense, and they ran us ragged in that first period. So the coaches made those adjustments. And I was impressed with Stastny and Livingstone with just how they handled. You watch, it was a real measuring stick to see how they handle playing against Nathan McKinnon, who was the best forward in the league, and they adapted very well. And yeah, they got a little mistake here and there, but playing defense is not an easy position. It's probably the most difficult position on the team because, when you make a mistake, it often leads to a great offensive opportunity and leads to goals against. So having these guys come in that don't have many games under their belt yet and play like they did, that's encouraging. So the future looks bright. And that's one thing that the Predators have always done is they've always had a pretty solid defense core. Their development of defensemen has been good, and goaltenders. Those two positions have been real solid for the Preds. So I think they've got a couple good solid young prospects in those two guys.
That was Jay Moore, former Nashville Predators defenseman and current radio analyst. Jay, we appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks, Jay.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. That was Jay Moore, again, current radio analyst alongside with Pete Weber. Coming up next here on Michelle and Junnie, we are going to make our weekend picks. A couple of professional teams have some games going on this weekend, and me, Nick, and Frazier will all get into it coming up next. You are listening to the Michelle and Junnie Show here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
Bon appetit. Take some Titans.
Derrick Henry.
Some Preds.
Roman Yossi.
Even some hoops.
Bright fires. Wow.
Put it in a blender. And what do you have? Chase and Michelle.
Pretty incredible.
Call or text and weigh in.
The fastest 2 hours in sports radio. Weekday mornings at 9 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. And the Game Nashville app.
Family Leisure invites you to vacation at home with a new spa, pool, patio furniture, or wood play gym this summer.
I really want a spa.
40 spas on display from Artesian, Best Spas, and American Select.
Prices starting as low as $29.99.
Family Leisure has over 100 sets of patio furniture with free delivery.
That sounds good to me, too.
We should really look at the wood play gyms for the kids. Family Leisure has the Diamond Point swing set on sale at only $24.99 installed. Family Leisure's vacation at home sale in Franklin and Antioch.
Family and fun come together.
When you want live and local.
If they were just better at the offensive line.
You can be a contender in the AFC again.
They've had more winning seasons than not. 102.5 and 106.3 The Game has you covered. Looking for some national programming?
Why do I want to get a running back like that 5 more years? The AFC now is so deep at quarterback.
Check out 94.9 The Fan. Nashville's home for all things sports is 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and 94.9 The Fan. If you missed the latest from Stillman and Company.
If I owned this team and they came to me and they said, we want Anthony Richardson, we want to make the trade to 3, we want to draft Anthony Richardson, I'd say okay, because he's got the talent. Does that mean that he's going to be Josh Allen? Absolutely not. Does it mean he's going to be Patrick Mahomes? Probably not. But you can't get a Patrick Mahomes if you're afraid to try. You can't get a Josh Allen if you're afraid to do what Buffalo did, where they drafted the quarterback. He was awful for 2 years. They continued to bring him along with Brian Dable as his coach. And then finally, boom, just like that in 2020 with Stephon Diggs, he was one of the top quarterbacks in the league. And it's not going to happen overnight, folks.
Stillman and Company, weekdays from 2 to 6 on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. This is Michelle and Junnie.
Really? That's fantastic.
Presented by Superbook Sports on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and on the Game Nashville app.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, 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 money. Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar.
Welcome back into the Michelle and Junnie Show here. Nick Keyser doing an excellent job filling in for Michelle Knezovic, who's out at a women's conference in Charlotte. We wish Michelle the best, but she is leaving it to the Hilltopper boys to take over today. And what a great show it's been, but you heard the music. Shane McMahon's theme song, Here Comes the Money.
Shane O'Mac, baby.
Shane O'Mac, the craziest. I mean, listen, WrestleMania didn't do him justice. Back in the day, Shane McMahon was electric. But regardless, a bunch of professional sports teams having some games in the great state of Tennessee this weekend. We are going to start with Lakers and Grizzlies. According to Superbook Sports, the Memphis Grizzlies are favored by 3.5, and the over-under is 227. I'm going to start on this pick. I like the Memphis Grizzlies in game 1. The Lakers are 15-22 on the season against playoff teams. Memphis is 35-6 at home. They've been dominant there. I think they are the more deep team in this playoff series, and I think they have a little bit more offensive output than this Lakers team. So give me the Grizz -3.5. I think they get the big win and win by about 6 or 7 in this matchup.
Oh, okay. Well, here's where I'm going to differ. I do think with the rest that the Lakers have, I think they will take game 1. It will be a narrow margin. I do think they will split games 1 and 2, but I'm going to take the Lakers for game 1 if it's me. I think that is a favorable matchup. It's a pretty close game. When you look at, the Sacramento Kings, I do like the Sacramento Kings. I do have an affinity for that team now, but give me the Lakers over the Grizzlies in game 1.
So straight money line. You're saying they're winning the game. Not +3.5. Stamp it down. LA goes into Memphis on Sunday, 2 p.m. tip-off. Come watch at Nobles. And they get the win against John Morant and the Grizzlies.
I'm going to say yes.
All right.
Interesting.
What a pick. Frazier.
Yes.
Who's the tiebreaker?
Listen,
who are you going with?
I'm rolling with the team in Tennessee, baby. Give me Memphis Grizzlies all day, every day. But here we go. I got some player props for you.
But, okay, well, you said you got the Grizzlies. Is that money line, or are you taking the 3.5?
I'm going to take them on the money line.
Okay.
I don't like the 3.5 just because I feel like it's going to be a 1 to 2 point game. I do have here, there is a little prop bet I have. It's the largest comeback. I do think Memphis will trail by 10 points at some degree in this game, and that is +480 for them to come back after trailing -10 points.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay, now, Frazier, I'm going to need your help a little bit on this because I'm looking at Superbook Sports right now, and it doesn't seem like they have a clear line for this game. But the Nashville SC is traveling up to New York to take on NYCFC, a team that just recently won the MLS Cup a few years ago, so a pretty formidable opponent. They're pretty close in the standings here. Give me NSC on the money line. Listen, I think NSC is a really interesting team this year. Listen, I have been watching this team for about 2 to 3 years now. Hani Mukhtar is absolutely just amazing. He is spectacular to watch. And the additions they've made on defense, I think that as this season goes and progresses, that their chemistry as a unit with some of their new players will progress as well, and they'll just keep getting better and better and be in that conversation at the end of the season. But give me NSC to get a key win on the road against NYCFC.
Okay, I like that. Well, I will also go NSC, but I want to give our fans a little bit, the fans that are out there for Nashville SC, they probably are aware that Nashville is 3-2-2 to start this year, while New York is 2-3-2. So, I mean, it's going to be a close game because
it is an evenly matched
because
game.
Last week it was 0-0 for Nashville SC, but hopefully they're able to get a few on the board this week and take advantage of it. They do have 6 goals for this year, while New York has 7. So we will see a very close matchup, but I'm going to take Nashville SC.
Nashville SC has always been a predominantly defensive team, not going to always light up the scoreboard unless Hani Mukhtar just completely takes over the game. But I would put money on Hani to have a goal in this game. Listen, last game, 0-0. It's probably a sour taste in their mouth. I see them coming out firing. Hani gets on the board with a goal. I'd put money on that as well.
All right, Frazier.
I'm right there with the both of you. I do think Nashville SC does win this game, probably a 1-0 margin, maybe 2-0. Just to the point that when they started out this season, it was kind of the adrenaline rush of the opening day of the MLS season, playing NYCFC, winning 2-0. Now they've had, like you said, they had a little bit of a rough start with their season. It's due to a little bit of some injury bugs here and there, but I do have a little bit of some player props here. I do like first-time goal scorer to be. We can go Hani Mukhtar. It's +550. It's a little juicy little lay you can put there. I do have a little 3-leg parlay. I have Nashville SC to have 4 shots or more on target, and Nashville SC to be +1 on the corner spread and over 8.5 corners. That is +819. You put $25 on it. Guess what? Wins you $200.
Listen. This is free money here on the Michelle and Junnie Show. Frazier is the gambling expert.
Ka-ching,
Whenever
ka-ching.
he says something, especially about NSC, he's got a lot of connections there. I would take that with a lot of grain of salt. Now, those are the only 2 games that are relative here to Tennessee that we're going to be betting on. Everybody come up with your own individual pick. And for me personally, I'm going to start with a game that's near and dear to Mr. Nick Keyser's heart. And I'm going Golden State Warriors +1, game 1 against the Sacramento Kings. The Kings have had one of the longest playoff droughts in all of professional sports. Golden State, we know what they've been, 4 championships the last 6 or 7 years. The veteran team will get the jump on this series. I think Golden State winds up winning this series in about 6 or 7 games. It will be competitive, but Golden State takes game 1. Sacramento's going to be really hyped up for this one. And I also, even though it's a pretty big number, I like the over. I think this is going to be a really high-scoring game. Give me over 237.5 according to Superbook Sports.
Man, I can't wait to hear what – I mean, Frazier, I'll give you some time if you want to pull up some player props with this.
Go ahead.
But look, light the beam, baby. I like my Kings. Give me them in game 1. I've heard Joe Rexrose ad all week long. Please give me the Sacramento Kings, and I would take the under. It's going to be a high-scoring game. I don't think I can touch that one.
But see, I see this game as a potential matchup because it's so close.
Right.
You know, the Kings are a really good team, and they're very fast-paced. The Warriors are as well. They can put up 10 points in a minute.
They could.
I see that this game could potentially go to OT.
It could. Yeah.
I think it's that highly competitive. I think it's that close, and I think this Kings crowd, they're going to be at home for this first game. It's going to be electric.
Golden One has been waiting for this for a very long time, and I can tell you, like, I have family that's there, and that's why I became a fan, was because got into them, went to a game. But look, Golden One has been waiting for this for a long time. It's a great atmosphere. It's a lot. You're on top of the action there. So I think Domantas Sabonis, man, he's going to get a double-double. I think he's going to go off. I believe he led the Western Conference in double-doubles this year, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't checked that recently. But, man, he's great. De'Aaron Fox, you can rely on. You can always trust him from 3.
Sabonis, interesting matchup against Draymond Green.
Yeah.
I think Green will be guarding him. I mean, that's the worst defender that you're going to want in your first playoff run if you're the Kings.
Kevin Huerter, who knows Michelle. I think he'll be fun to watch too. So curious to see if Frazier was able to get any player props, but what do you think about that matchup?
I'm kind of going a different game. I know that's kind of off script here,
That's
but
fine.
I'm going to go with the Knicks and the Cavs game. I really do like Julius Randle to get 4 threes today and for the Knicks to win outright.
Really?
Plus 480.
Listen. When I graduated high school in 2015, I know that was a long time ago for you young heads. Just kidding. But I started off at the University of Louisville, and Donovan Mitchell came in that same class. I've always been a Donovan Mitchell guy, and what he's done with the Cleveland Cavaliers, I would have to go with the Cavaliers in that game for me personally. You kind of want to touch in on this? We got a little bit of time. So Cavaliers, Knicks, Cleveland favored by 5.5. Give me the Cavs on the money line, but I would probably take the Knicks on the points. I think that's another close one, 4-5.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would go with the Cavs. That's the team that played against the Kings when I went. But yeah, I think the Cavs, Darius Garland's a fun guy to watch, Nashville's own, so give me him. I mean, they could be a special team here in the playoffs.
Now, before we have to go, I do kind of want to touch back on this Lakers-Grizzlies. I think this is such a great matchup for this Grizzlies team. I remember when I was younger, and they had Mike Conley, Tony Allen, Rudy Gay, Zach Randolph, Marc Gasol. Those were some fun Grizzly teams. And I've been talking to a lot of Grizzly fans here recently about the hype around this group, with John Morant, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., all these guys, Dylan Brooks. This is a solid team that has, they're very versatile. They can shoot around the perimeter, which Memphis isn't used to. They can play really good defense. And what better matchup for this team to get all the viewers around the country to highlight Memphis than to take on LeBron James, one of the greatest players of all time, Anthony Davis, and the historic Los Angeles Lakers. It is such an interesting matchup, and I think it'll be great if Memphis can start this run in the playoffs by knocking off LeBron and the Lakers.
I think it will be a phenomenal matchup, but we'll see. I mean, the king is king for a reason, so we'll see if the Kings can take down the king.
So quick before we go, prediction on series in Grizzlies-Lakers, because this is going to be the last show that we have before they kick off. I'm going Grizzlies in 7. I think it goes all the way to 7, and I think Memphis wins it at home in the final game of the series. Guys, real quick, your thoughts.
Memphis in 6. That's exactly where I think it's going to go.
All right, Frazier.
I'll take Memphis in 5.
Memphis in 5. So we got Memphis in 5, 6,
Why not?
and 7.
You hear that, David? David Janes.
David Janes is
5 games.
David Janes is jumping next to his radio right now. Boys, excellent job with Michelle Knesvik being out on vacation today, guys. Thank you to Nick Keyser for hopping in. You've done an excellent job covering the Preds. Guys, that is all the time that we have today. I'm Junnie Riddle here with Nick Keyser and Nick Frazier. You are listening to the Michelle and Junnie Show here on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
We out.
The college football season never stops.